Martin Bell was the BBC's war correspondent for 30 years and has covered some of the world's most difficult and dangerous news stories. He has also been an independent MP. In 2001, Martin was appointed UNICEF UK Ambassador for Humanitarian Emergencies. He travelled to Tajikistan on the Afghan border to report on UNICEF's handling of the refugee crisis there. Over the next 8 years, Martin continued to visit and report on UNICEF's emergency operations in war-torn countries, most recently in Somalia, the subject of our last podcast. I spoke to Martin following his visit to Somalia. I asked him what being a UNICEF ambassador meant to him.
Being a UNICEF ambassador to me is not actually so very different from being a war reporter in that you're bearing witness. But it's a different audience and a different frame of mind. I don't mind being a propagandist for UNICEF. I want the world to know what it does. And I've long since shed any pretense of neutrality. I'm on the side of UNICEF, I'm on the side of the children. And I want the world to know what's being done, what needs to be done. It's the best job I ever had. In 8 years I've been paid $1, and that was for something I did in Afghanistan. And I haven't spent it, I've framed it. It's a brilliant job.
Why do you find the job so rewarding?
I think it's very rewarding to do a job that's not for money but for the sake of doing the job. I cannot think of a time in our history when in so many countries the predicament of the young has been more desperate. This is especially true in the failed states of Africa, and of course Somalia is one of these, and there are other examples. I mean, Darfur is another case. We know things are happening now which, say, 100 years ago we would not have known because of modern media and communications. And these things are intolerable. And unless the world knows about them, we have no chance of putting them right. There are so many of the wars of the 21st century are fought in a kind of medieval darkness, and so many of the children are the victims of armed conflict. So there's a huge need out there. And the world is also more violent and dangerous than any I've known, and I've been around the unquiet corners of the world now, actually for half a century, I regret to say. The principal victims, wherever I see the armed conflict, tend to be the very old and the very young, because they are the defenceless ones. UNICEF concentrates on the very young, the numbers are huge, the need is great, and it's a privilege to be involved.
What are some of the other things you've done for UNICEF over the last 8 years?
I've worked for UNICEF mostly in zones of conflict or post-conflict, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Darfur, in the Congo, Democratic Republic, the Congo, which is one of the most desperate situations again. And it seemed to me that especially in North Kivu province, which is in the east of the country, just about any ill that can befall a people has befallen these people. There's HIV, AIDS, there are other diseases. There's war, there's the use and recruitment of child soldiers, there's rape used as a weapon of war. And in the south of the area, just outside Goma, they're also threatened by an active volcano. So it's pretty desperate there as well. UNICEF to send me to countries like that, and I have no quarrel with it. But you do get a sense of living on the edge of the world, or almost at the end of the world. And you want to make things better for these people, and UNICEF does that.
Do you have a hope for the future, a sense of how things could get better in some of these areas?
The hope for the future lies in its children, but they have to have a chance. They have to have a chance to get an education. And in Somalia, if only a fraction of the kids are getting an education, you are then storing up another generation of illiterate children whose only hope when they become adults is to flee the country. Throughout Africa and out of Africa, there are great migrations going on that people hardly know about. And one of the things that really troubles me is that my former profession in journalism has flinched and withdrawn from these fields. There's very little reporting now from Africa. There used to be a lot. Therefore, I think the importance of bearing witness is greater than ever. And the responsibility on UNICEF people, the national staff, the international staff, the communications officers, the country representatives, even the itinerant ambassadors like me to say, look, this is going on, this matters.
Do you have a message for people who are thinking of donating to UNICEF?
I think we should all know that we live in a very dangerous world. I think the most dangerous world since 1945. And we don't have the option of just retiring within our own properties and cultivating our gardens. Good things happen because people make them happen, and bad things happen because people let them happen. And through UNICEF, we have a unique opportunity across the world of making good things happen.
UNICEF needs your help to be able to continue meeting the needs of children around the world. Our Children's Emergency Fund enables us to launch a humanitarian response for children the moment a conflict or natural disaster occurs. You can support our work by donating online at www.unicef.org.uk/CEF. This is Andy Brown reporting for UNICEF UK.